Hey everyone, this is Rob Ryder, and hopefully, if you've never heard of me before, because somebody told you you need to go watch this video, hey, I'm Rob Ryder. Well, that's my avatar. Um, and my hope is that people who kind of follow the videos I did, I have quite a number of them, A, will do this themselves, B, would say to people they know are interested in politics or whatever, or the clergy or their parish council or whatever assembly that you belong to that really wants to do the right thing and is trying to do the right thing. You all need to know what I'm about to tell you. And the simplest way to do it is just to say it, and that is the fact that the members of the House of Representatives, what you would call a congressman, U.S. representative, they've not subscribed and filed their oath of office with the clerk of the House of Representatives and had it published in the official records of Congress, which would be the Journal of the House and the Congressional Record. These are all things that the law says that they have to do prior to taking their seat, and they're not doing it. I'm not convinced that the senators do it, but I haven't looked that close. But I'm really sure that the House of Representatives doesn't do it. And I'm going to show you where I got it from, and I think when you look at it, you say, well, that is what it says, and no, they didn't do it. Well, that being the case, what do we do about it? Well, to me, it's a matter of dividing the House now. And so you point out the error to the senator to have him go investigate, and if he refuses to, well, then he's just as guilty as the House is, and at least everybody knows where people stand. And you send it to as many people as you can in as many different ways as you can, and they need to know that that these people aren't elected. Now, I've been at this for a while, and it's that way from the township, through the county, through the city, county, state. None of those people are elected. They don't have official oaths. They don't have official bonds. The judges don't have oaths. The judges don't have bonds. They don't sign things in their proper person, Robert Allen Ritlewski, right? They don't use their proper person name, which is the only name you can use. That is your proper person name. Everything else is a fictitious entity that you would have had to have gotten had registered to use as a fictitious entity. And in my case, Robert A. Ritlewski was created by the government. They put him on my Social Security account as the owner. Somehow got me to agree to it at some point that that's who I was. I was a middle initial, but no, you're not a middle initial. You have one proper name, and you demand to be sued in your proper name. Because if you ever go to court and you look at the docket, it ain't going to be like Robert Allen Ritlewski. It will be Ritlewski, Robert Allen. That's slander of my God-given character. So anyways, my suggestion is we can go to these senators' websites. They're not that hard to find, and you can find where they have a form if you're asking for assistance of some kind, and you fill the form out, and when it comes down to, well, what's your complaint, you might put something like this in. And it doesn't need to be exactly like this, and this isn't that long, so just stop it, and if you think this is what you want to do, write it down. Right, open up a Word document, go back and forth, make the Word document smaller so you can actually have both open at the same time. In 5 minutes, you got it written down. But then send it, and get everybody to send it. And after you send it to the senators, think of somebody else to send it to. Right, you got family in the military, high-level military, send it to them. Accept their oath, bind them to it, remind them they have a fiduciary duty. We're talking enemies, foreign and domestic. So anyways, this is kind of what I had in mind to say would be Senator, whoever it is, members-elect of the U.S. House of Representatives have not subscribed nor filed for record with the clerk nor published their voluntary oath of office in the official records of Congress as mandated in Title II and 5 of the Code of Laws of the United States of America, and a requirement for their occupying an office of honor. I do not believe these individuals have the qualifications necessary to be considered for election to Congress and cannot produce a valid certificate of election from their state board of canvassers. by whatever name. We have State Board of Canvassers here. I don't know what they call where you guys are at. But what I do know is these people aren't going to have the piece of paper properly done from the State Board. The omission of these material facts constitutes a violation of the False Statements Accountability Act of 1996 and evidences these individuals are warring with the Constitution. Having enlightened your conscience that enemies, foreign and domestic, of the United States are now usurping the vacated offices of the House of Representatives, I demand you end their conspiracy. Failure to do your duty shall be construed as misprision of treason and blasphemy against the Holy Ghost. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Next week is Pentecost. Great outpouring of the Holy Ghost next week. Outstanding. People are going to get a little religion. And you'll help them if you were to send this to them and tweak their conscience. And this is Sunday, May 17, 2015, and I am Rob Ryder by Avatar. Easiest way to get a hold of me is my email address at courtofrecord@aol.com. I don't check messages too much on the videos or any place else, right? If you want to talk to me, send me something, courtofrecord@aol.com. And if you can donate, that's kind of how I'm able to do this, all by donations. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. And but the end of the month is coming, and I'm broke again. So, my PayPal account, Ashley Rytlewski, that's my daughter, ASHLEYRYTLEWSKI@gmail.com is the PayPal account name, or just use the old snail mail, Robert Rytlewski, 10955 14 Mile Road, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. So I'm going to stop right there. So now, if you haven't already, right, stop it, come back. That's why I put it at the beginning. So if you want to watch the whole video, you can just come back to the very beginning, stop it, and then you can copy this down and put it on the form. Let's go see what a form looks like, if I remember to show you one. Yeah, they're on your senator's website. Privacy Act form. But we got other things to look at first. So how is it I can say these things? Well, mess that up. Title 2 of the United States Code, subsection 25, says the following: Oath of Speaker, members, and delegates. At the first session of Congress after every general election of representatives, the oath of office shall be administered by any member of the House of Representatives to the Speaker, and by the Speaker to all members and delegates present, and to the clerk, previous to entering on any other business, and to the members, delegates who afterward appear, previous to their taking their seats. So before they can do anything else, it's got to be done, the oath. The clerk of the House of Representatives, the 80th, and such succeeding Congress shall cause the oath of office to be printed, furnishing 2 copies to each member and delegate who has taken the oath of office in accordance with law, which shall be subscribed in person by the member or delegate, who shall thereupon deliver them to the clerk. One to be filed in the records of the House of Representatives, and the other to be recorded in the Journal of the House and in the Congressional Record. And such signed copies, or certified copies thereof, or of either of such records thereof, shall be admissible in evidence in any court of the United States, and shall be held conclusive proof of the fact that the signer duly took the oath of office in accordance with law. Therefore, if he can't produce it, he didn't. He's a usurper. So where is the subscribed oath of office? Well, they should have gave him to the clerk. And I could go ask the clerk for him. You know, I've asked a lot of other people for stuff. I could certainly ask the clerk, but now I'm going to ask my senator. I have them go ask the clerk. Because I'm trying to, as many birds as you can get. The idea in this, for me, is this is all spiritual warfare, and I need to make his conscience aware of the fact that if he doesn't do something, he's the one who's committing the crime. He's the one who's blaspheming the Holy Spirit because he took an oath, so help me God. All right, it's a promise to God. It's, forget what the Constitution says. It was a promise to God. So, right, so that's kind of the gist of it right there. That's why it is the way it is. Now, I I need to go open something up that I closed by mistake, and that would be this right here. So, Journal of the House of Representatives. Now, in the law that we just looked at, it called it the Journal of the House, not the Journal of the House of Representatives. And when you Google Journal of the House and you go to the GPO website that it will take you to, and there it talks about the Journal of the House in really small letters at the beginning. It's kind of hard to read, but it talks about there's actually 2 copies being made. Double bookkeeping. And one is the minutes book, and it's all written in a book, and then the other one is kind of done in computer and stuff, and I think that that's what this ends up being, this Journal of the House of Representatives, but they're 2 different clerks putting in 2 different entries so they don't necessarily say the same thing. And if you remember a couple years ago where the gal who was a clerk went ballistic on him in there and called him a bunch of devil-worshipping pagans and, run by the Freemasons and so forth, and yeah, she's correct. I think she was one of the people writing stuff in the book. So she knows that what you're putting over there isn't the same as what's going over here. That's my opinion. I don't know. But what I do know is in this book, what they lead you to say that when you go looking for the Journal of the House, GPO, the government publishing organization, this is where they lead you to. So if it isn't correct, then it's concealment. But so first they're going to call this roll. This is in compliance to 2 U.S.C. 26. But they only call people by their last name, right? No full names, just last name. That may come to haunt us later. But down here, where are we now? Because I don't want this video to be too long. This is like the 4th page of the first section of the 2011 Journal of the House of Representatives. Because they get elected in the odd number year and they come into office the first Tuesday after the first Monday in January. And so this first day's business. And it's the odd number year. And so at the request of the Speaker-elect, the oath of office was then administered to him by Mr. Dingle. Right? And, again, it's obvious, it's all caps name. Dean of the House. Oath of office, member-elect, delegates-elect. Yeah. The Speaker said, according to precedent, not according to law, according to custom, the chair will swear in the members-elect of the House en masse. The members-elect will rise. The chair will now administer the oath of office. The members-elect, delegates-elect, resident commissioner-elect then rose in their place and took the oath of office as prescribed by law. So as the one part's a quote, somebody saying it, this other part is it's a narrative from the clerk saying what was happening. But it again, it said according to precedent, so not according to law, and it said the chair will swear in the members-elect. Well, this says, and by the Speaker to all members and delegates, right? That he's supposed to give them the oath. The Speaker. Didn't say the chair. And the chair isn't the Speaker because up here a couple pages earlier, when they were picking the Speaker-elect was escorted to the chair. So how can the chair is an inanimate object? It can't speak. It can't give anybody an oath. It's Pinocchio, wood. Right? It didn't happen. Didn't happen. But there's more. Right? Because this doesn't this says that they took an oath, but it doesn't say anything about them doing anything else. And then they went on to selecting other people and started putting in resolutions. Well, none of that was supposed to happen until they had subscribed their oath and gave it to the clerk. Now, the other officers were elected. The officers of this is interesting. The officers of the House of Representatives aren't members of the House of Representatives. You got a a chaplain, that constitutional office, a chaplain, who I'm going to send a complaint to about what's going on, and because he's an officer of the, he would be an officer of the house. And then you got a clerk, and you got some administrative executive and a sergeant at arms that aren't members of the house, but they're all officers of the house. So, but then it went on to, let's see, how'd this go? Where was this at? It went on a little bit further. So now, sometime later, this is like in May or so of the same year, because there had been a special election in which was communicated from the clerk about the certificate of election for this member. Right? So here's the thing about certificates of election. All the members that were going to be elected should have put one in. It didn't really talk about that. But now we're going to talk about the certificate of election here for somebody that's in a special election. Where it says, Dear Mr. Speaker, I have the honor, this is from the clerk to the Speaker, Clerk of the House. Dear Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to transmit herein a facsimile copy of a letter received from Mr. Robert Brem and Ms. Kimberly Galvin on behalf of Mr. Todd Valentine, co-executive directors, New York State Board of Elections, indicating that according to the unofficial returns of the special election held on May 21st, 2011, the Honorable Kathy Courtney Hochul has was elected Representative of Congress, the 26th Congressional District, State of New York. So it says, Kathy Courtney Hochul. Proper case name. And all this is saying is, well, we received a fax copy of something from, had the name of Robert Brem and somebody else who said they were doing it on behalf of somebody else, who's apparently the co-executive director, about some unofficial returns that it looks like Kathy Courtney Hochul's been elected. In Congressman 26 show that Kathy Courtney Hochul received, okay, so, that she received that many. But it's an unofficial. As soon as the official results are certified to the office of all county boards in the 26th Congressional District involved, an official certification of election will be prepared for and transmitted by law. So, did that ever happen? I don't know. But what I do know is Mr. Rangel, all caps, stood up and said, well, ordered that notwithstanding the fact that the certificate of election of Ms. all of a sudden now it's not Kathy, it's Kathleen Courtney Hochul. They specifically said Kathy Courtney Hochul. Well, what's the name on the election paperwork? Because they're not the same. Has not been received by the clerk of the House of Representatives. Ms. Hochul be permitted to take the oath of office anyways. Blah, 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 blah. Right? So they're going to let her take the oath even though it's only unofficial and they've changed her name. That there being no contest or no question with regard to his election. I mean, this dude is talking out his ass. I know it's probably a senior moment, but it's Kathy Courtney Hochul. Kathy Courtney Hochul. Not Kathleen Courtney Hochul. There being no contest or question regarding to his, I believe it to be a her, election. But anyway, so Ms. Hochul then presented herself at the bar of the House and took oath of office prescribed by law. Well, good for her. Forgot to show you one thing. All this is happening. Where was it here? Okay, so on motion, before Kathy gets there, though, we're going to take an adjournment. Now, during the adjournment, it looks like, because they didn't say that they're back, it's just adjourned. The oath of office required by the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States and provided for by Section 2 of the Act May 13th, 1884, 23 Stat 22. If somebody has that and can send it to me, I'd really appreciate it, because I didn't find it and I don't want to spend any more time on it, but I would like to look at it. To be administered to members, resident, commissioner, delegates, and the text of it is carried in 5 U.S.C. 3331. Right? So, in the United States Code, Title 5, Section 3331 is this oath right here that does say, "So help me God." That anybody who's taken an office of honor or profit has to take. And offices of honor are either in the legislature or judiciary, and offices of profit are in the executive. So anyways, I, A.B., do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion, right? You can't say you didn't fucking know, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Blasphemy of the Holy Ghost. You don't follow that oath, my friend. And that is the unforgivable sin. And as subscribed in person and filed in duplicate by the following member of the 112th Congress. And who would it be? What would be now? It's Kathleen C. Hochul. Uppercase. Mr. Rangel made her Kathleen Courtney Hochul. Proper case. She started out as Kathy Courtney Hochul, proper case. But she ended up taking the oath as uppercase Kathleen C. Hochul. Whoever that is. I don't know. All I know is they did it while basically court was adjourned. They were on an adjournment. And I know that they've done that. They play that trick in court quite often, where people are told to be in court at 4:30 in the afternoon, and court closes at 4. Or they're still there at 5 and court closes at 4. You're not in court. I don't care how much it looks like a court. Court closed at 4. They didn't stay open for you. Your case isn't that important. You're not that important. What's important is they don't talk about what you're talking about during court. So you're not in court. So anyways, I hope you can see that, these people, they have unofficial certificates good enough to come to the bar and pretend to take an oath during an adjournment using a fictitious name, Kathleen C. Hochul, because that isn't her proper person. So she really can't take an oath in that name. And they didn't, because they didn't subscribe a copy. But this says that they did, right? So I shouldn't say that, because this does say that they did do that. So we should go check. Has been subscribed in person and filed in duplicate with the clerk of the House of Representatives by the following member, pursuant to the provisions of 2 U.S.C. 25. Well, we could go see what that one looks like. But how come hers is in here saying that she did that, but it isn't for the en masse? That was done by precedents not pursuant to any provision, 2 U.S.C. 25. If she had to do it pursuant to this provision, why did the other people do it by precedents in an en masse ceremony where there's no memorial to the event? Well, it could be because they're warring with the Constitution. And there, let's let our congressman figure that out. So, where? Here we go. Just a few more little things that are always of interest. This is what the text is on the website of the GPO if you went and Googled House, Journal of the House, you'll see a GPO link and go to it, and there's some really small printing on this page, and that's what this is. Where it says about the Journal of the House of Representatives, in Article 1, Section 5, United States Constitution, it states, each House shall keep a journal if its proceedings, that doesn't sound right, that's how they wrote it, if its proceedings, and from time to time publish the same, except such parts as may, in their judgment, require secrecy. Accordingly, the journal, and not the congressional record, is the official record of the proceedings of the House, the Journal of the House. Right? The journal is the official record of the proceedings of each legislative day in the House of Representatives. But they don't call it the Journal of the House of Representatives, it's the journal. The journal record records the results of every vote and state in general terms the subject of it. Therefore, their recorded votes on amendments occurring in the committee of the whole and the state, or on the state of the Union, are recorded in the journal, but not the proceedings. The journal contains no verbatim debate, but instead a rendition of all the official actions of the House, including every motion made and every vote taken. While in session, the proceedings are recorded in note form by a journal clerk at the dais, and on the floor of the House of Representatives in a large book called the Journal's Minute Book. Another journal clerk produces a manuscript on the actions in more detail by computer. The final complete daily manuscript, computer generated, right? That's in parentheses. Is that the one they're talking about? The final complete daily manuscript. Well, the manuscript sounds more like a book, so the Journal Minute Book to me is proved and presented to the parliamentarians for review, and then approved by the Speaker prior to the next legislative day. Approval by the journal, or of the journal, by the Speaker is the first order of business in each legislative day. And I don't see in here where he's approved it. Right? That should be part of the thing. And I guess I haven't really looked that close in this. Again, I just don't know that this journal book that we're looking at, that they make look, it's what the GPO site will lead you to. It's the House Journal. It's something else. However, forgetting that, the Congress or the Senate has their own. It's the congressional record, and it was supposed to have been put in there too. So it's just as easy for your senator to go look at their record to see if the congressman has been recorded in a book. What else we got here? The presentation of all credentials of senators elect or of senators designate and other questions of privilege shall always be in order except during the reading and correction of the journal. While questions of order or motion to the adjournment is pending, and while the Senate is voting or saying blah, 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 the Secretary shall keep, this must be the Secretary of the Senate, or it's the Secretary of State, don't know. The Secretary shall keep a record of the certificates of election and certificates of appointment of senators by entering in a well-bound book kept for that purpose the date of the election or appointment, the name of the person elected or appointed, the day of the certificate, the name of the governor, the Secretary of State signing the countersign the same, and the state from which such senator is elected or appointed, and the state from which such senator. So this secretary, because this would be, so this is a public record, going to be preserved, and all that stuff is really under the jurisdiction of the archivist of the United States, who I think is really playing the Secretary of State in a Continental Congress, which has one house, not two, with at least 2 members from each state that could make them be the senators if they've done this properly. But it's not this isn't the Secretary of the Senate that has this. This is the Secretary of State, which would be, in my opinion, the archivist, because the archivist is the one that keeps all the permanent public records. And it's that way in your state. The state librarian is the keeper of the public record. I'm going to show you that here in just a little bit. But right, so this is this is a way to go look to see. We need to find out who's actually running the freaking government. And so if these are kept in a well-bound book, kept for that purpose, the date of the election or appointment, we should be able to ask the archivist for a copy and see what they say. Yeah, put it on next week's list. Recommended forms of certificate of elections and certificate of appointments are as follows. Right, so this gives you an idea of the words it should have on there. This is to certify that someday was duly chosen by qualified electors of the state of a senator from the said state to represent said state in the Senate of the United States for a term of 6 years, beginning on the 3rd day of January. Witness His Excellency our Governor, and our seal affixed to. Yeah, the Governor and the Secretary of State need to be on it. Unexpired term. So, okay. So that's the reason for, again, because it doesn't look like they followed the rules, the House of Representatives, and I don't know if this Senate did or not. I'll just test the Senate by putting them to their oath and having them go check on the House, because if those guys aren't holding office properly, then they're warring with the Constitution, and the senator has an obligation to do something about it. Or he's guilty of misprision and treason. So, all right. Hang on a second. Okay, so after you kind of know what to complain about, and hopefully you'll do it now before you have a problem, because most people that get a hold of me, they're involved in a court case of some kind, or losing their house, or traffic, or God knows what, and so they're willing to do things. It's just they're not necessarily into the jurisdiction that we need to be putting things into. That's what we're going to try to get the slip laws for and stuff, and why we were trying to get the congressmen to do what they're supposed to, but because they're supposed to be your agent and attorney. If you're somebody's constituent, then they are your agent and attorney. And a lot of crazy things have happened. If you don't know these things, it's kind of mind-blowing. You're not a citizen of the United States. Your birth was never properly registered, and you were probably treated as a fondling and given a guardian ad litem, and an estate was created for you so that, oh my God, when you grow up, you won't have to be destitute. And that's what your all caps is. It's the name of your estate. It's your legal person. And your proper person is that name in proper case. And that's the name that they're not allowing to exist in a jurisdiction. Robert Allen Rytlewski, proper case, they don't want him in any jurisdiction. They're enforcing his disappearance. I'm Rytlewski, Robert Allen. Or I'm Robert A. Rytlewski. Different jurisdictions, but that's how they have you. So when you go to your local court, usually it's Rytlewski, Robert Allen. When the IRS sends me tax stuff, it's Robert A. Rytlewski. When I look at the stub was from my Social Security card that you're supposed to tear off and keep in a safe place, it says on there on the back that the name and account number is on the other side of that stub, and you flip it over, and the name on the account then is Robert A. Rytlewski, not Robert Allen. They didn't put my Social Security in my proper person name, and they don't want to fix the error. And that's what some of these other videos I did are about. And I pointed out that through my congressman at the time, that if you were to look at a passport, and which is a book, and on the front cover of the book is where your picture is, and it has your surname, given name, Rytlewski Robert Allen, but on the first page of the book it says the Secretary of State of the United States of America hereby requests all whom it may concern to permit the citizen/national of the United States named herein to pass without delay or hindrance, and in all case of need to be given all lawful aid and protection. And then there's a space, and then it's given again. I think it's in French. And then there's a place to sign it. Well, someplace between the word herein and the place where it was signed, in my opinion, should be the herein named national. And they didn't put my name in there. Right? And there's a space where they could easily put in Robert Allen Rytlewski. And this is because they don't want him. The reason they didn't register your birth is so that they don't have to give you your birthright, which is to be a national of the United States, and now you have a citizenship. Otherwise, the way it is now, you're stateless. You're just an undocumented worker within the territorial boundaries of the United States. And so I had sent quite a lengthy complaint to the Department of Homeland Security about that, and to the Civil Rights, Civil Liberties place, and I got this answer back, probably the same day, or maybe it was the next day. Thank you for contacting the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Office for Civil Rights, Civil Liberties. You see how it says Homeland Security, and it has DHS in parentheses, Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, CRCL in parentheses. Under 6 U.S.C. blah, 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 is CRLC is responsible for reviewing and assessing information concerning abuses of civil rights, civil liberties, and profiling on the basis of race, ethnic, religion, employees and officials of DHS. After reviewing your information, we determined that CRCL does not have jurisdiction over your concern. Thank you again for contacting our office. Okay, well, I don't like that answer, so I'm going to respond back to the Office of Inspector General. But what I'm talking about here would have been in my last video, and these are always easiest to find because I never remember the names just by the searching by upload date. And so Homeland Security, right? We got a Department of Homeland Security of Inspector General, Office of Inspector General. Mailing address, they got an allegation form you could fill out. Could do it this way, could do it that. Could send it to Public Affairs, because if we're under a state of emergency and the military is involved, then Public Affairs is where the community goes to interact with the governing military authorities. And they have an email address. And he could do a FOIA. But what I was pointing out in the complaint, just for really short, was the fact that Homeland Security has the obligation to enforce the Immigration and Nationality Act. And in that act, in Section 360, it says that if you're within the geographical boundaries of the United States, basically, that's how I read it, and you claim to be a national, and somebody else claims that you're not, like somebody in the government who says, well, you're not a national, so we're not going to give you a passport that says you're a national, then I have a right to a hearing in a Article 3 court, for lack of a better term. So they should be enforcing that law. So enforce the law. Get me my hearing. That's what I want. Well, they were saying that they don't have anything to do with it. So I'm going to send it. I'm going to send it back through the Office of Inspector General. Okay, but there's lots of things you can do. So one thing I did was, I'm going to send it to the Provost Marshal, right? And pointed out something a little bit differently, but I'm going to send it to them. So the Office of the Provost Marshal General of the United States Army. Your order issued in the holy name of Jesus. Absolutely. Major General Mark S. Inch. In my own proper person, I, Robert Allen Rytlewski, accept your oath, bind you to it, remind you of fiduciary duty. Thank you for your service and extend you my sovereign immunity while you carry out God's orders. With little effort, you will be able to corroborate the material fact that members-elect of the U.S. House of Representatives of the 114th Congress have not subscribed and recorded an oath of office in accordance with federal laws. And really, those three laws right there cover pretty much everything. 2 U.S.C. 25 and 5 U.S.C. 2906 and 3331. The unmasked swearing ceremony that we looked at, conducted in accordance with precedents, is not an oath administered by the speaker as required by law. The record found in the journal states that the chair will administer the oath. I do not believe an office of chair exists in the Congress, and thus the ceremony is a simulated legal process. That ain't hard to understand. Members-elect of the House of Representatives are mandated to subscribe 2 copies of their oath of office, one being filed with the clerk, the other published in both Houses of Congress official records, the Congressional Record and the Journal of the House. General, the published record does not exist. The only references in the 2011 Journal of the House of Representatives about subscribing oaths are when special elections have been held and the winner is being installed. In such cases, the record clearly states that the certificate election has not been recorded prior to the premature subscribing of an oath of office, thus invalidating any claim to the office. It should be noted that Title II of the United States Code also mandates senators deliver a certificate of election to the President of the Senate from the governor of the senator's state, countersigned by the Secretary of State of the state. 2 U.S.C. subsection 1, 1A, 1B. Perhaps you should check their credentials also. I do not know if the clerk has a copy of the members-elect subscribed oath, 2 U.S.C. 25. I've asked the office of a member-elect, Justin Amish, 3rd District of Michigan, for a copy, but this request has been met with silence. Others have had the same experience. Without recorded evidence of a valid oath of office, a member-elect cannot be considered a congressman and instead a usurper of a vacated public office. Some may consider this warring with the Constitution and misprision of treason. I informed the Department of Homeland Security of this situation, but have not heard from them. In the holy name of Jesus, I order you to investigate the situation and leave you to your duty. Contact me with questions. I declare on a penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. Executed May 15, 2015. By me. Right, so I sent that to the Army. And I said, well, what else? Who else can I think of to send it to? Well, think. God, give me somebody else to think of. Huh. Well, he did. I'm going to send it to the Reverend Rector at the Basilica of the National Shrine, which is actually the Pope's church here in America. And the Reverend Patrick J. Conroy, who's actually a constitutional congressional officer. He would be the chaplain. Official notice. My brothers in Christ, in my own proper person, I, Robert Allen Ratluski, enlighten your conscience that in the last week I filed a complaint with the Department of Homeland Security and an order to the Provost Marshal General of the United States Army regarding members-elect of the U.S. House of Representatives usurping public office. The members-elect have not properly subscribed, filed, recorded their voluntary oath of office in accordance with the code laws of the United States of America. The included order to the Provost Marshal is my latest attempt to enlighten civil and religious leaders of various violations by way of omission found in all levels of government and the Church. Let me be clear, occupants in at least one chamber of Congress cannot prove acceptance of an office of honor or profit by way of a certified copy or of subscribed oath, nor published recording of the event in the official records of Congress. Check and verify the facts for yourself. Chaplain Conroy, you and your constitutionally created chaplain office have a moral and lawful obligation to initiate an investigation into the usurpation of congressional offices and oversee the removal of those who refuse to acknowledge their duties under law. Not to do so could be construed as treason and denial of the Holy Ghost. Clergymen, Pope Francis needs to be made aware that the legislature of the United States has been usurped by enemies foreign and domestic. These men and women participate in enslavement of mankind, and I must insist you immediately contact Pope Francis and appraise him of the situation. He may wish to pack a bigger crucifix. Rector Rossi, not only do I make your conscience aware of chaplain's duty to God and country, but I also inform you that I've been denied my office and benefits in the Catholic Church because its clerics, infected with clericalism, replace the law of the Church with customs of Satan. My certificate of baptism, included with this official notice, omits facts of my full Christian initiation and was not recorded in accordance to law. I am a Roman Catholic, and the basilica you ever see is an extension of the Diocese of Rome. Please see that the Bishop of Rome is informed you have proof that I accepted the Lord's offer. Please have him send me my instruments of my office and install me in my benefice. I appeal to Pope Francis for the restoration of my God-given rights, title, and interest. In the holy name of Jesus, let us conform the temporal order to the will of the Lord. Amen. So I haven't got this done yet. I'm just about finished up. I'm gonna send that out today. But all right, I'm gonna get a congressional officer. I'm gonna hook him in. I'm gonna have another priest looking over his shoulder who has to answer to the Pope. And yeah, I'm gonna write some more to the church. I'm gonna write to the church because these people are mismanaging the patrimony of the church. I think it's the church that put the money in your account in the first place. It wasn't your mom and dad. Right? So if there's any truth to this thing where they created a public person, a legal person, a corporation, which they did, and supplied it with something of value, well, that wouldn't have been these devil-worshipping pagans. They would have just kept the money. No, that came from the church. It's just ones and zeros in a computer, but it's the way they keep track. And right, to show you that we are basically, or our legal person, your all capital letter name, of which your proper person is the same name, just in proper case. Any other name, you would have to have a fictitious entity form. So, if all these things happened when you were a child, which they did, and your birth was never properly registered, which it wasn't, and then your account was actually put into the name of somebody with a middle initial instead of your proper name, which in my case it was, right? The paperwork mom and dad sent them have Robert Allen Rutluski on there, I'm quite sure. It was a custom to do that, and that clouded the title. And, right, so I've never come to claim it, and, well, there you go. They want to administer it. But it's my Social Security. And security has, that has to do with, not guns, has to do with negotiable instruments. And they got mine. Okay, a few more things. Hang on. Okay, I said I'd show you some evidences of other offices that aren't properly held. Here's an oath of office. Look at this one here. State of Michigan, County of Branch, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, blah, 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 probate judge. Signature, Kirk A. Cashian. Again, there is no Kirk A. Right? That's an assumed name. He didn't use his proper person, so he's not doing an oath properly. But forgetting that, this was signed by a guy who says he's the circuit judge, P. William O'Grady, which there is no P. William O'Grady. If you go, in both cases, these guys who are judges, because in Michigan, to be a judge, you need to be a attorney licensed to practice law, are listed on the Michigan State Bar site. And when you go there, they not, it's not P. William O'Grady. It's whatever his name is, William O'Grady. But blah, 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 and all that. This is my favorite thing of all times. This is supposed to be representing, apparently, the Great Seal of the State of Michigan. And if you know anything about the Great Seal of the State of Michigan, it's got a moose and an elk, and they're kind of facing a shield in the center. But if you notice the critter on the right, he's looking back over his shoulder. He's not facing the center like the critter on the left is. On the Great Seal, both animals face the center. And on this seal, one animal is looking over his rear end. And that's what they're trying to use. And this is the circuit court judge of this county, who's, subscribing an oath or witnessing an oath for a guy who wants to be the probate judge who's using a fictitious name. There's one. Okay, here's a bond request. Oh, I did it again. And this is for Joseph Henry McMahon, who is the prosecutor of Kane County, supposedly. The obligee name and address are changed to be the following: people of the state of Illinois, County of Kane, care of Kane County public officials, right? This is the name of the obligee. This is some entity's name. People of the state of Illinois, County of Kane, care of County of Kane public officials, 719 South Batavia Avenue, Building A, Geneva, including all the little tittles of the law, all the little frickin' punctuations and so forth. Right? So they're saying that, anyways, that to be attached to and form part of the surety bond, number dated something for Joseph Henry McMahon, in favor of Kane County, right? Not in favor of the people, but in favor of Kane County, as principal. Okay, so how would this work? On behalf of Joseph Henry McMahon, as principal, the principal, in favor of Kane County, and that would make them the as obligee, the principal and surety hereby consent to changing the attached bond as follows. The obligee name and address are changed to be to the following. Yada, yada, yada. Okay? And they go on, but it was never accepted by the obligee. There's no name on there. It's been filed, but not accepted. So, again, this is another case of paperwork not being done the way it's supposed to. Approve this 29th day of July 2014, blah, blah, blah. Chief Judge. No, Judge, that's not what it says. It says the obligee needs to do it. And who was the obligee? They were named. The obligee, name and address are changed to be the following. People of the state of Illinois, County of Kane. That should be here, with a byline who's doing it for the obligee. And it isn't. So your state's attorney doesn't have a bond. And this is a simulated legal process using color of law. That would be a human rights violation. You're all going to hell if you don't change your ways, I'm telling you. This shit ain't going to stand anymore. So the rest of it's got stuff on it, but it doesn't matter. It just takes one thing to be wrong. And this is wrong. They didn't fucking accept it. So it's just a bunch of blah, blah, blah. It's an unsigned contract. Right now it's a unilateral contract between Joseph Henry McMahon and, who knows? Who? I don't know who this other person is. It's him twice. State's attorney. Right? I don't see no seal from this attorney, in fact, on here. Crazy stuff. All right, so that's another example of simulated legal process and trying to say that they've done something. This is supposed to be the oath of the county clerk. I, John A. Callahan, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois. I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Kane County Clerk to the best of my ability. No signatures. No signature from the notary. Right? They got a notary stamp on there, but there's no signature from the notary. When you ask them for a copy of their oath, this is what they give you. Yeah. So, right, the dude didn't take an oath. He didn't subscribe it. There ain't any witnesses. There's nothing. And then, what was this one? How do I do this here? got that one yet. This will blow you away. This is from the Office of the Attorney General, State of Illinois, where we had written to them and asking if it was okay for an attorney to use a middle initial instead of a full name, right? Because they're not using the name that's on their license. So Roe sent this. And the answer from Lisa was, I have your letter inquiring whether an attorney licensed in Illinois may offer legal services to the public under an assumed name. I regret that I cannot advise you in this matter. Under Section 4 of the Attorney General Act, the Attorney General is authorized to advise only states' attorneys, states' officers, state agencies. See Statement on Policy of Attorney General relating to furnishing written opinions. Therefore, in the absence of an express statutory provision providing otherwise, we cannot advise you concerning your request. If you would like to pursue this matter further, you may wish to contact the Illinois Attorney Registration Disciplinary Commission. Yeah, we may. We tried that. That didn't really work either. So Carla sent it, for Lisa. Using a middle initial, right? Using an assumed name. So even the Attorney General can't tell you if it's okay for an attorney to offer legal advice under an assumed name. Where clearly it says if you're not licensed to practice law, you can't offer legal advice. It's a violation of the Attorneys Act. And then Roe got a copy of a law. Oh, this is what it was, as a matter of fact. This is a page of the Attorneys Act that she got the Secretary of State's office to certify. We're just not sure if the certificate's any good. No person shall be permitted to practice as an attorney or counsel at law without the state having previously obtained a license for that purpose from the Supreme Court of the state. You need to use the name that's on the license. Anybody else is an unlicensed person. How are you going to know if you have a license or not? Is the name the same? And so we want to have that law certified, and they did it this way. To all those present shall come greeting. I, Jesse White, Secretary of State, State of Illinois, do hereby certify the attached a true copy of the Illinois compiled as taken from Legislative Information Services database in full force and effect. I don't know what that means, right? Because I'm going to say this isn't from the law library, which is a library of the laws, and for them to say this is the law we have in our law library, because that's what the archivist does. When a act of Congress has been, when everybody's done A, B, C, D, and Z, it goes to them, and they compile it at the end of the year into the statutes at large. Until then, it's considered a slip law, and they can authenticate a slip law. And so there's supposed to be a way to do this, and I believe it's to be done through the they have a depository, regional depository, regional depository libraries, because Bobby in Arizona just had it done. And so this was going to the Office of Secretary of State, that you would think of every day as the Office of Secretary of State, right? And we got this kind of paper. In testimony whereof I hereunto set my hand, cause it would be affixed a great seal, the United States or the State of Illinois, done, blah blah blah, right? So I don't think that that's his signature. I think somebody put a seal on there, did that, but they should have done a byline doing it for him. And I don't know that this is actually an affixed seal. I don't know if that's proper to be in blue. Because really on legal documents, everything is supposed to be black. Because anything that has color in it fades over time, and black has carbon as its base element, or it's, what it's made out of, and, well, that'd be a mineral. It ain't going to fade. So, well, hang on just a second. Okay, I was gone a little bit longer than I thought I might be. My brother stopped over. But I think I left off saying I was going to go show you what Bob had gotten from, this Bobby in Arizona, he got from the state library where he had called and asked if they could certify a law for them or for him, and they said, yep, that they could. And so he went down there and he got certified, or he got a couple of statutes at large that have to do with, both of these have to do, one had to do with the False Claims Act, or False Statements Act, and the other one is, I believe, the immigration law. But what's interesting is how they did this. So he went to the library, they went and found the books, and then the library is in the Capitol in Arizona, and so they went from the Capitol, where they were, down to the Secretary of State's office in the Capitol, where Antonio Bucci hereby certified that I am the reference librarian, State Library of Arizona, of the Arizona State Library, Archives and Public Records of the State of Arizona, that there is on file in said agency the following, and it was these two laws, the reproductions to which this affidavit is attached is our true and correct copy of the documents on file. And so they went to the Secretary of State's office, and so this Latika Macias, she made Tony raise his hand and take an oath first before he could subscribe the paperwork. And she did it using a regular notary seal, but what Bob said is the book was different. Usually in a notary book, it's like one line across the page, and they write in these different attributes. And this was had a heavier ringed binder on the side, and everything was in blocks of information, not in lines. And it was kept in the Secretary of State's office, which made me think, well, maybe what we should be doing is going, like here in Michigan, if you go to the DMV, they have one person there from the Secretary of State, and that's who we should have giving us our notary work from the Secretary of State's office, because that book that this lady did this in, it probably isn't her book, it's the Secretary of State's book. Because that's what, if you work for an employer and you happen to be a notary, it can be their book. Otherwise, you have your own book. And when you go to a bank, the book belongs to the bank. But if you go to the Secretary of State's office, it looks like it would belong to the Secretary of State. The other interesting thing is how this guy's title, that I am the reference librarian, State Library of Arizona, of the Arizona State Library, Archives and Public Records of the State of Arizona. So there's Arizona State Library, Archives and Public Records of the State of Arizona, and as it turns out, this is the keeper of the public record in Arizona. It's not the Secretary of State. It's the Arizona State Library, Archives and Public Records of the State of Arizona. And they keep the public records. So they're not kept in the county, right? Which is where your birth records are. They shouldn't be. They should be here in this public record. And that's just based on some of the ways that the laws are written. That, well, first of all, before we go there, so when Bob did this, he got a receipt because they charged him $3, and it's the State Library of Arizona, the genealogy department. Certification, $3. He's got a receipt from the state of Arizona that he got something certified. I don't know how lawful it is, but I do know this: it was in genealogy. And in genealogy is where he went to get a certified copy of the law, because that's what he went there for, is to get the law certified. So somehow this is tied to the genealogy people at the secretaries, or at the archivist, state librarian. Lots of different titles, it seems like. What else was there? So, based on that, because we're talking about public records, Bob went back and he looked at some public records that have to do with recording your birth certificate. And it says, the depository of official archives. The state library is the central depository of all official books, records, documents not in current use in the various state offices and departments of the state. So you would think when they're done with a book and they go to a new book, well, they're not using the old book anymore. It should go to the state offices. The counties, incorporated cities, and towns. These materials constitute the state archives. The state archive shall be carefully kept and preserved, classified, cataloged, made available for inspection under the rules the director adopts. State officers in possession of official state or territorial archives shall deposit those archives within the state library. Any county, municipal, or other public official shall either retain or deposit with the state library for permanent preservation official books, records, documents, and original papers not in current use. The clerk of the Superior Court shall deposit, and the state librarian shall preserve all permanent Superior Court case files pursuant to court rules. This is the lowercase Superior Court. This is the one that they write all the laws about in Arizona, the lowercase Superior Court. All their records are going to the state archivist. The state library shall make birth and death records held in the state library archives available for inspection as follows. Birth records in 75 years have passed after the date of birth was recorded on the birth certificate. Okay, so they can release to the public for inspection after 75 years a birth record. It says birth records. Doesn't say birth certificate. Birth records. Duties of the Director, Arizona State Library, Archives, and Public Records. The Director shall provide safe, secure, permanent preservation of vital records, not certificates, records. The Director shall comply with preservation requirements. Pursuant to some other section, Section D, Arizona State Library, Archives, Public Records, shall provide access to registered birth certificates and registered death certificates submitted pursuant to Section B of this section. That Section B says the Director shall submit to the Arizona State Library, Archives, and Public Records for permanent preservation a copy of a person's, right, so a copy, but not the record, registered birth certificate 75 years after inspection. So the Director of whatever we're directing here, Arizona State Library, shall provide safe and secure permanent preservation of vital records. But here it is. The Director of the Arizona State Library, Archives, and Public Records is entitled to receive records, including sealed records, within 120 days of receipt or creation by the department. I didn't say what department, but it does say they can get a record within 120 days of its creation. So where's your birth record? Well, Bob had found out before when he went down to the hospital that the hospital keeps the record for 10 years. And as Roe pointed out, hey, that's like a mortgage, where you can have a mortgage for 5 and an additional 5 added on to it. 10 years. And they never send it to the county. All they do with the county is they fill out an online form with the information to the county, but they keep the original record for 10 years. And I'm not really sure what happened to the record after that, but right, the lady at the hospital just knew they got rid of them after 10 years. But that they hadn't really followed what the rules say. I mean, this is the point, that it says what they're supposed to do, and they didn't do it. It's supposed to go to the state. The state doesn't have it. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we're still researching. Bob has asked some questions. We'll try to have answers next week. But if you just look at some of the definitions of the words, a certificate means a record that documents a birth or death. It's a record. It's not a certificate. Your certificate of live birth they give you is a certificate for the record. And we don't have it. A certified copy means a written reproduction of the registered certificate that a local registrar, a deputy local registrar, or the state registrar has authenticated as true and exact written reproduction of the registered certificate. It doesn't say it's authenticated as true and exact written reproduction, then it's not a certified copy of a birth record. Court order means a written decision issued by, there's that lowercase Superior Court again. the lowercase superior court, an appellate court or Supreme Court, or an equivalent court in another state, a commissioner or judicial hearing officer of the superior court, a judge of the tribal court in this state. So the superior court, lowercase superior court, is the court of Parliament. It's the highest court there is, according to Blackstone and Lord Coke. It's higher than the courts of law. It's the court of Parliament, because it can make a law and it can unmake a law. And so in a common term, the superior court, then, not as the name of a proper name of something, but as the duty of something. I guess that really isn't a good term, but the lowercase, the common noun is, the superior court would be whatever the highest court is, and the highest court is a court of Parliament. But it says an appellate court or the Supreme Court. Right? So those could be the Supreme Court that you're thinking of, in the superior court is what it is, and it's the court of Parliament. Or it's a court of legislative court of some kind. And was there any other ones I wanted to do? Register means assign an official state number and to incorporate into the state registrar's official records. So your birth isn't registered until it's been assigned an official state number and incorporated into the state registrar's official records. And that hasn't happened because the record's still remaining with the county or with the hospital or with whoever they gave it to. And so Bob's going to find out why they don't have a copy of his, because they could have got it lawfully. They could have it within. The director of the Arizona State Library, Archives, and Public Records is entitled to receive records, including sealed records, within 120 days of receipt or creation by the department. So maybe Bob can give him a copy. But between that and this other book here is probably the answer, and he's going to dig a little deeper, and we'll see where it leads to. So that's the birth side, because your birth has never been properly registered, and that made you stateless and denying you of your birthright. So, and just one other little thing, one other little tidbit of interest. It's going to take me a minute to get it, so I got to shut this off, but I'll be right back. Okay, and lastly, we talked about this a little bit last week, and I hope to look into it more this week, but it's this Form 8832, Entity Classification Election, done by the IRS, in which, if we go down to what the purposes of the thing is for, it says, an eligible entity uses Form 8832 to elect how it will be classified for federal tax purposes, as a corporation, a partnership, or an entity disregarded as separate from its owner. An eligible entity is classified for federal tax purposes under the default rules prescribed unless it files a Form 8832 or 2553, election for small business. See who must file below. The IRS will use the information entered on this form to establish entities' filing and reporting requirements for federal tax purposes. And so a disregarded entity, so basically an entity that's in here could be considered a corporation, a partnership, or basically a sole proprietorship, because that's how a disregarded entity is handled by tax rules. And all that is under Entity Classification Election, found on Wikipedia. For the United States income tax purposes, a business entity may elect to be treated either as a corporation or other than a corporation. This entity classification election is made by filing Internal Revenue Form 8832. Absent filing the form, the default classification applies. U.S. corporations of this type can be publicly traded must be treated as corporations. There is a list of specific foreign entities that must be treated as corporations. If an entity is not classified as a corporation, it is treated as a partnership for U.S. tax purposes if it has more than one owner, or as a disregarded entity if it has a single owner. and basically it's treated as part of the single owner. So at first I thought maybe we're supposed to run away from that, and we're supposed to get it looked at as a corporation, right? Now I'm talking about your all caps name. And so if you were to go back here and look at this form, see what they're asking you to do, right? The name of the entity, to me that's the all caps. The number, street, room, well, that's where the mail comes to. All my mail that comes to me is in my all caps name, it seems like. But one of the things you can do, check if it's for an address change, which would be interesting, because right now my all caps I don't believe is at least for the IRS necessarily, do they know what the address is? And relief for late change of entity classification. So this could be that it's the first time that you've... So let's say your all caps right now is considered disregarded entity and you want to change it to be seen as a corporation. You fill this form out. And, you're going to change the current classification. Go to 2A. Has the eligible entity previously filed an entity classification that effective date the last 6 months? Probably not, unless you have. Go to 3. Does the eligible entity have more than one owner? Yes or no? If no, go to 4. If the eligible entity has more than one owner, has only one owner, provide the following. The name of the owner. Well, this is where your proper person would go. So all caps Robert Allen Rytlewski goes in the top, and my proper Robert Allen Rytlewski goes here, and my Social Security number goes here, and it goes up here for the employee identification number of all caps, because it's the identifier that ties them both together is through your Social Security number. And so if you haven't done this, and your all caps is a business entity, then it's been given the disregarded entity status, and it's seen the same as your owner, same as you for tax purposes. But I don't know that it is. I think somebody else is playing with all caps, and you're not getting the benefit of it, right? And so there's something wrong with, like the paperwork's been put in, but it's got the wrong address. Well, when you read through all this and you get down here into the blah blah blah, and you get into the rules, you find out that whenever you end up doing this thing, that number 1, it's going to reference. There's the default rules. Hang on here. Where did I see that? That first of all, the service center will notify eligible entity at the address listed on the Form 8832 if its election is accepted or not accepted. No matter what you do with this form, it's going to go to one of these agencies here for them to give it the yes or no okay. Well, that's good, right? So, then I should be able to call them first and ask them a question. Care should be exercised to ensure IRS receives this election. If the entity is not notified of acceptance or non-acceptance of its election within 60 days, take the following action by calling. It gives you a number to call. And then it gives you some of these internal revenue, I don't say they're brochures. I don't know what they're exactly called, but they're basically the internal laws of the IRS, and most of these you can find if you just Google it. It will come up. It tells you where to file it, and. So, but something I found last night that I wanted to bring up today, more than anything else, I guess, is this. So here's one of those bulletins, an IRB. And at the very back of this IRB, where it's talking about, this particular one is, the Internal Revenue Bulletin is the authoritative instrument of the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue for announcing official rulings, and procedures of the Internal Revenue Service, and for publishing Treasury decisions, executive orders, tax conventions, legislation, court decision, other terms of general interest. It is published weekly and may be obtained from the Superintendent of Documents on the subscription basis. Bulletin contents are compiled semi-annually into cumulative bulletins, which are sold on single copy basis. They're basically taking their version of a slip law and every year or every semi-annually putting it together as their version of what a statute at large would be. But these are the internal rules of the that the IRS has to follow. It is the policy of the service to publish a bulletin. All substantive ruling necessary to promote a uniform application of tax law, including rulings of superseded, revoked, blah, blah, blah. Revenue rulings represent the conclusions of the service on the application of the law to the pivotal facts stated in the revenue ruling. Rulings and procedures reported in the bulletin do not have the force and effect of Treasury Department regulations, but they may be used as precedents. Oh, so they can be used as the custom. Unpublished rulings will not be relied on, used, or cited as precedents by service personnel in the disposition of other cases. Okay, so you need to be able to find the published ruling before you can use it as a precedent. Well, that's good. A citation of the Internal Revenue Bulletin as the source would be appropriate. And, it's just a little blah, blah, blah on it. So this is part 3 of this, whatever they call this thing, the Internal Revenue Bulletin on administrative, procedural, and miscellaneous. And this is where it talks in here about these entities, whatever they were, disassociated, discombobulated, disregarded entities. So I was just kind of skimming through this thing, and I, somehow ended up at the back for some reason because it was talking about fees, payment of fees. And I said, okay, well, what kind of fees they got to pay? And so here's some ideas of determination office and some of the fees that it charges for different things. Well, I saw none. Okay, well, regulations under 301 9100, relief in connection with application for recognition of exemption. They don't charge anything for that one. But here's another one. Confirmation of exemption. In other words, to replace a lost exempt status letter and to reflect name and address changes. Well, that doesn't cost nothing to do. And really, I think that's what we're doing, because at the end of the day, your all capital letter name was created when you were a baby by a guardian, by or through or with or afterwards given to a guardian ad litem. It's your estate that was has been farmed basically, and now has all this value in it, and we're trying to get control of it. And it could be that we just haven't ever gone in to say, hey, we lost our exemption letter. And in that letter, it's going to tell us things that we might need to know. So for me, I'm going to start here, I think, and I'm going to get a hold of them and find out about to get a confirmation of exemption. And I haven't read this book or this pamphlet yet, how to do it, but it must be in here because it's talking about it here. And this thing is called the Internal Revenue Bulletin, and it comes in 4 parts, and this is part 3. Part 1 is the code itself from 1986. Part 2 are treaties and tax legislation. And Part 3 is administration, procedural, and miscellaneous. That's what I'm looking at. And 4 would be general interest. 2013-1 IRB. That's what this thing is called. And this is Section C, I guess. But another thing was when you looked at... so there's a source of new information. I'm just pointing out new sources of information that we're going to try to study, along with all the other things we're doing. And that was... Jeepers, man. In this rule here, you see things like classified regulation section 301-7701 or you might see, notice 2004 83, 2004 52. These are all things that you can get copies of. And one of them was this Rev Proc 2009-41. And this has to do with procedure also provides guidance for those eligible entities that do not qualify for relief under this revenue procedure and are required to request a letter ruling in order to request relief for a late entity classification election. All right, so if you have to do something special, that's what this particular rule is for, it looks like. Rev Proc 2009-41. If you Google it, you can find this thing. And it goes through a bunch of stuff, but at the end, it's really interesting. The principal author of this revenue procedure is Richard T. Probst of the Office of Associate Chief Counsel, Pass-Through and Special Industries. For further information regarding this revenue procedure, contact Richard T. Probst at 202-622-3062. You can call, or 3060. You can call him and ask him a question about this procedure that he wrote. And it doesn't just say it there, it says it in, here it is online, right? And so I just copied and pasted this to put it into something I could read easier, but there it is, right? Section, drafting information. This is right on the IRS website, right? That you can call them and ask them questions. To other places other than the frickin' 800 number that they give you, no, this isn't an 800 number. This goes to Richard's desk. 202-622-3080. To find out how, if there was mistakes made as a child and I didn't do all the paperwork I was supposed to and I need to take advantage of this late entry classification, what I would do. Or what is Robert Allen Rytlewski, all caps, considered today? That legal entity. And so I'm not really explaining this that well, because I'm not explaining it for you to use. I'm explaining, hey, there's a whole bunch of information here I didn't know existed before that has something to do with qualifying the status that your legal person is going to be seen at. And, technically, if it's seen the same as you, and that's a sole proprietorship, well, then you would be responsible for its debts. But you never get anything tax-wise saying that you're responsible for its debts. So I don't know that. I think it's already been set up as a corporation association, and we just lost the paperwork. Or the address has changed, and we haven't told them, and now the paperwork would come to us for your all caps that talks about all the value it has when we change the entity and give them the address change. So there it is, late classification relief sought under revenue procedure 2009-41. That's the thing I was looking at there on right here. And so, reading and understanding this better and maybe giving Richard a call might be what's in order. But I have a few other things I need to get done first, and that is, because for me, this isn't supposed to be about me. This is supposed to be about the common good. Try and take care of the common good. If you take care of the common good, everything else will take care of itself. And part of the common good is that the righteous rule, so peace can reign. And so to do that, we got to point out, hey, these other people are usurping the office, and we demand they be removed from office. And then in my spare time, I'll work on the IRS stuff. But if you want to work on it now because that's your gig, well, excellent, have at it. Start with 8832, entity classification election, and find out from the people involved in this what our all caps is already seen as and what address they have for it. And when you fill the form out, make sure you put your all caps up here with your social security number, And down here as the owner, you put your proper case name, your proper person name, and the Social Security number. And this one here is because if you're married, you have a partnership. If the eligible entity is owned by one or more affiliated corporations, which it would be, because man and woman would each have their own, that file a consolidated return, provide the name and employer identification number of the parent corporation. So I think that each person would have to do one of these, the man and the wife. Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out. Okay, hey, really, that's all I had. But give me 1 second. But I know it's been a long video and talked a lot about a lot of stuff. But to me, the important thing is what we started out at the beginning, that the members-elect of the U.S. House of Representatives haven't subscribed or filed for record with the clerk nor published their voluntary oath of office in the official records of Congress. They're not holding the office. So let's take it to the senator and make him aware of it, so that if he doesn't do something about it, well, then he's just guilty of treason. And we can call a spade and get everything where it needs to be, and then go let all the other parties know what's going on. Go tell the Tea Party, the Green Party, whoever. Right? Go tell your county council. Go tell your city council. Go tell your township council. Run an ad in the newspaper. Whatever it is. But put a complaint into the senator also. You got family members in the military? Send it to them. Right? Maybe they'll give it to their officer who will do something with it, and eventually we run into the angel and the military comes in and they clean the rats out of the frickin' out of the Capitol. And again, if you can, please donate. My email address is courtofrecord@AOL.com if you want to send me something. Donate at ashleyretluski@gmail.com, which is the PayPal account, or mail Robert Retluski at my address. All right, and that's where we're at this week, and I got to go send out some of the things I showed you because they're not quite in the mail yet. The one I really want to get the one to the chaplain of the Congress done, so I got to get that one finished, and I'll have it out today, Lord willing. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you.